Hi, everyone. Welcome to our demo with Dooap webinar. My name is Brent Hamitner. I'm the Director of Marketing for Dooap, and I'm joined by my colleague, Kristen Ewert, who is a solutions consultant for Dooap that works very closely with our US customers. The purpose of the webinar is to provide a high-level overview of the Dooap platform intended to help those companies that may be in the discovery and exploration stage of accounts payable automation solutions. After this introduction, Kristen will share what she's heard from customers regarding why they decide to work with Dooap, and then follow with a look into the Dooap platform itself, covering some of the topics like ERP that Dooap works with, how invoices get into Dooap, the automated workflows, and some of the main functionalities. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Kristen.
Thank you, Brent. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. As Brent mentioned, we are going to talk about Dooap today. And why Dooap? Well, Dooap is a fully automated paperless invoice processing platform. We've designed it to help lower the cost of processing invoices manually and increase the efficiency within the AP department. And Dooap was built from the ground up in Microsoft's Azure cloud and designed specifically to integrate with Dynamics D365 and AX 2012. We've coded accounts payable best practices into our software. And the Dooap team consists of folks with 10 plus years of Dynamics and AX consulting experience. Dooap lives outside of Dynamics and integrates seamlessly by utilizing its master data and business logic in real time. So let's take a closer look. So what is accounts payable automation with Dooap? Well, we provide a fully automated AP processing platform for our users. So for starters, we offer a mailroom service. And these are a group of folks who where we create an email address for invoices to be sent to. Our mailroom team scans those invoices, captures the data on them, and validates the data prior to importing into Dooap. Now, if clients have paper invoices, we will also open up a PO box for those to be sent to. Upon import into Dooap, we provide fully automated and customizable workflows, coding for non-PO invoices. We also include PO matching, so two-way and three-way PO invoices. We offer reporting through Power BI, and as part of the implementation process, we provide a comprehensive set of reports for the team to use. One of those reports includes a fast close, to be used at the end of the month. For archiving, all the Dooap invoices are stored on a dedicated database in the Azure cloud. Okay. And of course, you can always have an offline copy of your data anytime you like. We also offer project coding and ledger coding for non-PO invoices. Okay. All of this works seamlessly with Dynamics. Okay. So when AP folks are coding or PO matching their invoices, it's communicating with Dynamics in real time. So let's take a look at what that looks like. This is a picture of the master data that lives in Dynamics. Okay. Over here on the right-hand side is the Dooap portion, and you'll notice that Dooap is constantly communicating with Dynamics as the AP users are processing invoices. Once the invoice is fully approved, it's transferred from Dooap to Dynamics, where the PO invoices are posted through the pending vendor invoices table, and the non-PO invoices are through the invoice journal, and then where payments occur in Dynamics, just like you're using today. So let's take a look at the system. Okay. This is the main landing page for the AP folks. Okay, we call this their workspace. Now, prior to logging in to Dooap, folks are going to log into their Dynamics. So Dooap recognizes the 80 credentials for that user. And once they have their Dynamics page pulled up, they'll pull up a new page for their Dooap, and it'll log them right in. Okay, so this is the AP workspace, and we've designed it so that AP can see previous invoices that they've that have been handled, Their active invoices section is the invoice that's ready for them to process, and the next invoices section are the ones waiting in their queue. On the right-hand side, you'll see the invoice image for that particular invoice that's in the active section, the audit history for that particular invoice, and any attachments that may be tied to this invoice. Up at the top, you'll notice that there is a workflow, and this particular workflow is assigned to this invoice at the moment. We have the ability to assign workflow presets at the vendor level. So if this Acme Office Supplies comes in, then this particular workflow would be automatically assigned to it. Alternatively, the AP user has the ability to change the workflow just depending on the type of invoice that comes in. Okay. So let's take a look at the invoice that I have pulled up now. It is a PO invoice. Okay. I have collapsed the right-hand side of my invoice. If I need to look at it, I can just expand it. Okay. But collapsing it gives me a little bit of a broader view of the invoice handling page. All of the header information comes into the system and pre-populates for the invoice. If the PO number is on the invoice, it will populate here in the system. Now I have removed it for this demo, but I'm going to go ahead and select the PO from Dynamics. Okay. All of these POs are associated with this particular vendor. I choose the PO that is associated with this particular invoice. It pulls into the system. I do notice that I have a difference of $95, so I'm going to take a look at the actual invoice, and I notice that there's a freight charge. So I'm going to add a miscellaneous charge code for freight so that I can capture that $95. Once that's added, you'll notice that the difference amount goes down to 0. It is highlighted in green, which means it's within tolerance. Once everything else looks good for the AP user, then they can move it through the workflow by clicking the checkbox. Okay. So let's take a look at the next invoice, which is a non-PO invoice. This in particular invoice came into the system. There was no PO number on the invoice, so the system automatically deemed it as a non-PO invoice. As an AP user, I come in, I take a look. Okay. I notice that my main account needs to be pulled in. Okay. I can also, this particular line can be coded to a ledger account or a project account. And for this demo, we're going to do ledger account. I'm going to select my main account. It's going to fetch the dimensions from Dynamics real time. Okay. This particular main account did not have any financial dimensions associated with it. Okay. Therefore, there aren't any additional fields. If there were, they would be right here showing just to the left of the amount field. So the amount of the coded line is the amount of the invoice. My remaining amount is 0, which means it's in tolerance. This particular vendor does not need any tax groups or item tax groups, but if it did, I would fill those in. As an AP person, I make sure that there are no notifications in the upper right-hand corner. Okay, it all looks good, so I'm going to move it through the workflow. And a next invoice has come in to the active section. So the next invoices queue is a list of all of the invoices that have come in. AP has the ability to select which ones they would like by using the arrows after they've selected one of the lines. All of the columns are sortable, A to Z, and vice versa. We have a filter up in the upper left-hand corner that will search the invoice handling page, which is what's in front of you. This filter is a contains logic, which means that you do not have to be exact when typing in the vendor name or the invoice number. You can do partial searches. There is a search button up at the upper top header here. This particular search is going to search the entire system. This is an exact match. So when searching here, you will need to know the exact vendor name or the exact invoice number, for example. I talked about the mailroom service briefly in that invoices come through the mailroom service. They get scanned, captured, validated, and imported into Dooap. If for some reason there is an invoice that needs to be handled straight away, right now, then the users have the ability to add invoices on the fly. This is permission based, so if you want to hide this from folks, you can, but it is a way for you to process invoices right away without having a 1 or 2 hour delay by sending it through the mailroom service. The caveat here is that all of the header information will need to be filled out. We have the ability to set defaults at the company level and the vendor level. So if you have a default company and a default vendor, those fields will auto-populate, but everything else will need to be filled in. There is no OCR functionality tied to adding invoices manually. Let's talk about a little bit of the admin functionality up at the top. This is also permission-based, but just to run through it quickly, companies, Dooap has the ability to handle multiple companies for the client. If you bring them all in from Dynamics and don't plan on using them right away, but you will in the future, we can always make them not active. The data will still import, but it won't be visible on the invoice handling page for AP or any of the approvers. The vendor section, again, all of this information gets imported into Dooap daily. Okay. So vendors have the ability to, or you have the ability to set a default workflow for your vendors as well as a default invoice type. So if vendor A will always have this workflow and this invoice type, then that information can be set at the default right here. That saves time on the AP step so they don't have to worry about making sure that that's correct or filling it in should it not be there. The users are automatically populated into Dooap from Dynamics. As long as they're active in Dynamics, they will flow into Dooap. If for some reason a user has moved on, we can make them not active here. We do keep them in Dooap though for audit history. So if you don't want them to be part of Dooap anymore, then we can just make them not active. Roles, we can create any roles that you'd like. These are the ones that we've created here for this particular demo environment, but you can create any roles that you wish and then assign those permissions to those roles. The workflow presets, these are separate from the workflow presets in Dynamics. However, we could mirror the setup in Dooap if you'd like. We've created our own workflow preset in that to make it more customizable for our clients. We have the ability to do conditional workflow. And what I mean by that is this particular workflow has myself as an approver, but I kick in when the invoice is $5,000 and above. And then Amanda is the next approver in line if for some reason the invoice is above 10,000. If the invoice is below 5,000, then Anna and Miko are the last approvers. Now, we call this a split workflow in that Anna and Miko both have to approve it before it can be final approved. These are more robust than what we have seen in Dynamics, which is one of the main reasons we decided to build outside of Dynamics. User groups have the ability to create a user group. So if there are a group of folks that have the authority to approve an invoice, but it doesn't necessarily need to go to each one of them. We could create a group for them, tie them all to the group. They'll get an email stating that there's an invoice pending their approval, and one of them just has to go in and approve that particular invoice. This is also a good way to manage approvers. So if someone leaves, then there's no rush to get the workflow presets or the user cleaned up here in Dooap, because there'll always be somebody in the AP group or in whatever the user group is to approve that invoice. Once the invoice is final approved, we have a transfer to payment section. And the transfer to payment section is one last look for that AP user to ensure that everything looks good. So from the time of final approval to the time of transferring, a couple of things could happen. The vendor could go on hold, the PO could be unconfirmed, the product receipts could be canceled, and all of these are hard stops for transferring into Dynamics. So from here, the user would select the invoices they would like to transfer. If they want to select them all, there's a checkbox right here in the transfer field, and it would highlight all of the ones available to be approved. Once they've selected the ones that they want to transfer, they come over to the right-hand side and they click the transfer button. It's going to transfer these 3 invoices. It's also validating that the data on the invoice is still compliant with what is in Dynamics, meaning is the vendor still active? Is the PO still confirmed? Are the product receipts still valid? Once it's done transferring, it's going to give a notice saying this was transferred, and if there are any errors, it will tell the user what those errors are, meaning the vendor's on hold and the invoice went into the pending invoices table, or it went into the invoice journal unposted. But the transfer to payment page is, as I said, a last look for AP to make sure that everything looks good before going back into Dynamics. Okay. All invoices from Dooap are classified as auto post, which means once transferred into Dynamics, as long as everything checks out, it will auto post in Dynamics, which is why the transfer to payment page is an important step for the AP team. Okay, so let's take a look at the mobile app. The mobile app was designed for approvers on the go, not necessarily for the AP user. The mobile app is a native app for Apple users as well as Android. And you'll notice that I have a set of invoices arranged like a stack of cards. Up at the top, it tells me how many invoices are ready for my approval, and it's going to tell me who sent me the invoice. Now, the functionality here on our mobile app is a swipe left to skip and swipe right to approve. And so if I swipe this invoice to the left, it's going to skip it and move it to the back of the pile. If I swipe right, it's going to approve it. Highlight it in green, and you'll notice at the top, I have the ability to undo that invoice. Okay. It brought it back from the approval. Now that's about 3 to 5 seconds. So just in case somebody approves something by accident, they always have a chance to bring it back, but only within 5 seconds. If I need to look into this invoice, I click on the invoice and it's going to show me exactly what I can see on the desktop. It's going to show me the header information. Swipe left will show me the actual image. If I want to drill into the image and do a zoom, I click on the image and I can pinch zoom to make it bigger and to make it smaller. I see the workflow, okay, who it came from and who it's going to next. This one came from myself as AP, and now I'm a reviewer. And then it's going to go to Amanda for approval. These are any comments from any of the, whether AP, reviewer, or approver, they will all be stored here. The coding lines. The coding lines here on our mobile app are editable. You can add a coding line or change a particular coding line. This is the invoice history for this particular company and vendor. Now, this is an important screen for a lot of approvers because that way they can see the history of what was approved previously. So in case they have any questions, they can come here as opposed to reaching out to somebody. Okay, and they can certainly drill into any one of these PO invoices. Okay. At the bottom of the screen, there are always the return invoice and accept invoice. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that invoice, which means I'm going to approve it. Here in the icon on the upper left-hand corner is the menu icon. It allows me to take a look at any page without having to swipe through. I can click on my icon and it will allow me to set a delegate. Now, a delegate is someone who will handle your invoices for you while you're away. Okay, so you can click on the icon and select a delegate from anybody that's set up in the system that has the approval limits the same as you do. Once you set a delegate and then the time frame that you want, then that person will be able to log in as if they were you and handle the invoices that you would typically handle. Now, all of that information is stored on the audit trail for future reference. That's an overview of Dooap. I appreciate everybody joining. Should you have any questions, please reach out to Brent or visit us at dooap.com. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.